you can lose your VA home loan benefits if you have outstanding government debt. So we're going to break down what goes on this report, the debt, and how to fix it. And by the way, this affects overpayment on VA disability benefits, which a lot of times, the VA either overpays, and if you're not the type of plan, that can bite you in the rear. So now, overall, lenders pull what's called a CAIVRS report. Now, this is called a credit alert verification reporting system when you go into underwriting. So they won't even know if you pop on this during the pre-approval process. But if you feel like you have some concerns, make sure that you talk with the lender to pull that report, because they can definitely do it beforehand, okay? Now, this report's going to show whether you're currently in default or foreclosure on any federal debt. So let's talk about who reports to the CAIVRS system. So it's going to be the Department of Education, student loans, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is going to be HUD, the Department of Agriculture, which I think that's interesting, the Department of Justice, the Department of Veteran Affairs. That's going to be you're delinquent, or you got overpayment. Now you are in debt because of that. But if you are in a payment plan, that's okay. And also, the shocking one, which I did not realize up until a little bit ago, was the Small Business Administration, right? The SBA. So if you're in default on federal student loans, you owe money to the SBA because you took out a loan to start a business, or you have unpaid settlement to the Department of Justice, DOJ, you're going to have a hit on the CAIVRS report. Even if you left the military, but for some reason you were charged with like a clothing or equipment that you didn't return, and you have an outstanding bill, it's going to show up on here and you won't even know it. That's the crazy part of all of this. And with all that being said, right, I want to just reiterate, overpayments on VA disability benefits can hinder you from using your VA loan. This actually applies to all government loans, so even FHA is going to have a big impact on that. Now, let's talk about the big one. If you had a VA loan and it went into foreclosure, or you had a short sale on the property, okay, and that property sells, but it didn't have enough, didn't sell for enough to cover the debt that was owed to VA or even FHA in this case, then you, on a VA loan, will have locked out a portion of your VA home loan benefits until you've paid that back. So the best thing to do is to contact the lender, or if you guys want to contact us, we're happy to help. We have our link down below to schedule a time to talk with us. We can pull your certificate of eligibility. If you have concerns about your CAIVRS report, we can also pull that for you. That is not a big deal, okay? Now, the other thing with that is that some of these debts also have time limits on how long they show up on a CAIVRS report. So, for example, if you had an FHA loan that went into foreclosure, it's going to stay on your credit report, and it also is going to stay on your CAIVRS report, okay? Credit report, bankruptcies and foreclosures, bankruptcies stay on your credit report for 10 years. And then foreclosures should be falling off at the 7-year mark, but that might be 10 years. Don't quote me on that right now. Okay, so on a CAIVRS report, FHA loans stay on there for 3 years. After that, they get removed, which is great. But for the VA home loan purposes, you can actually use your VA home loan. You can actually use the VA home loan even if that debt shows up on a CAIVRS report after the 2-year mark. If you had an FHA foreclosure, it's always important not to disqualify yourself. And the crazy part too to all this is that these debts don't necessarily show up on your credit report. Furthermore, if you had a foreclosure and you included these debts into that foreclosure, those debts actually are still going to come up on the CAIVRS report, and you're still responsible for paying those debts back, right? So the thing is that with even all of that said, there's definitely ways that you can go around that. And the VA is very not go around it, but more of, how do you implement certain pieces to be able to get your VA home loan benefits, because they are a phenomenal product, right? Like we've talked about in a lot of our videos, is that you have no down payment requirements You can do 100% financing. There's no limit on what you can purchase as long as you're both eligible, meaning you have your VA home loan and you meet the time and character of service and character of discharge. Then you can use the VA home loan. And then the qualification piece, which we're always talking about, understanding your credit, how much money you take in, your assets, all that has a big play into your VA home loan, right? A lot of us work towards home ownership because it is a piece of the American dream. And something like this can hinder it. And the crazy part, I know I say crazy part because a lot of this is crazy, is that we have helped veterans that have been out 10, 15 years from the service, and they go into this underwriting process and then find out that, oh man, 10 years ago, the government was supposed to pay down my student debt. They never did. It doesn't show up on a credit report. Now we have this loan in underwriting. Someone feels like someone is buying their dream home, and now this issue pops up where they have to now either pay that off. They can't go into a repayment plan because it takes a minimum of 6 payments, so you wouldn't be able to do it right away. This is why it's also important to get pre-approved, or if you feel like there's an issue, ask the lender to pull a CAIVRS report ahead of time, right? I would say that 6 months to a year out from purchasing is when you should be getting a pre-approval, a real credit check, submit all your documents, run any scenarios that you want through a lender. And by the way, guys, just again, we are happy to help with that. This is what we specialize in, is VA home loans. So we're happy to assist in that space, okay? So let's say you have the event happen. We've already talked about, hey, here's some solutions. Talk with a lender. Not all of these things that pop up on a CAIVRS report are going to hinder you necessarily, but you need to come up with some kind of solution, right? So in general, you have to pay off the debt in its entirety, right? That's kind of in general. If it's on there and it's something that's big, they're going to want to see how that's going to be handled. The other thing, like I've mentioned, is that you have to go into a repayment plan and make a minimum of 6 payments before you are taken out of the default status. Now, that could be a temporary solution. Sometimes does it make sense to get a personal loan to pay off that debt, depending on what the rates are, depending on what your affordability is. This is why a budget is so important. So there could be some alternate solutions that you can put together pretty quick. I mean, even if you have a spouse that, let's say, is not on the mortgage, maybe they could take out a loan and pay it off for you. That's definitely a possibility, because we did a recent video on gifts, and anybody can give you a gift for the purposes of using your VA home loan. And now the most favorable solution is that the debt has fallen off and it no longer comes up on your CAIVRS report. Now, no, from what I've seen, it seems like student loans never fall off your credit report, like that example that I just gave recently. I think it's mind-blowing. So please, guys, hit the like and subscribe button, share our information. We do presentations across the country. A lot of it's done over Zoom. So if you guys know military units or organizations that are looking to get information for their veteran groups, we're happy to provide it. So talk to you soon.